So now we're going to do a review of everything we've learned in this section. And importantly, I'm going to show you all of the HTML tags we've learned so far and all of the CSS properties we've learned so far. So I'm going to show you that first, and then I'm going to review this section, and then I'm going to review the entire course. And review is important because it gives you that high-level overview and it helps reinforce everything you're learning. I'm making the symbol for crazy. I don't know why. And as you reinforce everything you're learning, that's going to help you learn it, obviously. And so that's what we're going to do in this video. And if you feel like you've got it, that's why I'm telling you kind of what's happening in the video at the beginning, so you could just say, okay, I'm going to the next video. But I really think this is important to the learning process. I've seen it really help students just to step back and get the big picture. What are we doing here? So that they're not lost in the details. So the first thing, I want to review and just show you all of the HTML tags you've learned so far. So we've learned HTML, head, body, meta, title, paragraph, heading, unordered list, ordered list, list item, link, image, anchor, and paragraph. So we'll be building to that list as we go through the course. I'll be keeping track of that list, and you'll be able to reference it in one place, like in the review. Oh yeah, what are all the different elements? What's that one element? And so just to kind of briefly talk that through, the HTML, first we have the document type declaration at the top of the HTML page, and then we have the HTML tag opening and closing, and then inside that, nested within that, we have the head tag and the body tag, and then nested within the head tag, we have the meta charset UTF-8 tag, and then we also have the title tag, which sets the name up in the tab of the browser, and then the body tag is where you put your HTML. So we learned the paragraph, the heading tags H1 through H6, unordered list UL, ordered list OL, list item, which gets nested inside an unordered list or an ordered list LI, link, which allows us to link our style sheet, an external style sheet, to our HTML document, image, IMG is the tag that we use, anchor, which is how we create hyperlinks, and then paragraph. And we also learned about tag attributes. So the anchor tag, for instance, takes the href attribute, and that's where, hey, this is where I want to send somebody. And it also takes, it could take optionally, the target attribute. So target underscore blank allows you to open that in a new tab. So then the CSS properties we learned. Remember CSS, we have a rule set. A rule set is made up of a selector or selectors, and then a declaration block. Inside the declaration block, we have declarations. Declarations are made up of property value settings, so properties and values. So each declaration has a property and a value. So the CSS properties we've learned width, right? Set the width of an element. We've learned height, set the height of an element. So we might say width 100 pixels, height 100 pixels. Oh, one more HTML element we've learned, div. So we've learned the div element, and I'm going to format that like the rest of them right here. So set the width, set the height of an element, and then we could set the background color, and just like red, blue, those are the colors we're using so far. If you've looked into web programming a little bit and you've seen some of the hash, hexadecimal coloring scheme, we'll go over that eventually. We learned the everything selector, the universal selector. We've learned color, so that changes the color of text. We've learned font size to change the font size of text, like make it 20 px, 20 pixels, units of measurement, px. We'll learn more about units of measurement further down in the course. We've learned px so far and percentage. We learned about the display property. And here are some of these are the display settings we've learned so far. Inline block, and none. Then we've learned padding, border, and margin. So that relates to the box model. Everything's a box, has the content, has padding, has border, and then it has margin. Just like in this little picture right there, content, padding, border, margin, right? So we've learned those properties and we can adjust those. We've learned box sizing, border box, which holds padding and border. Instead of increasing the size of the element, it pushes the content inward and keeps the size of the element the same when we have set a width on it. We want it to be this wide, and we're having box sizing border box. It's going to stay that wide no matter how we change padding and border. All right. We also learned margin, sets a space between elements, and we learned border radius, which rounds the elements. So this is creating websites. You have tags, right? And you use HTML tags and kind of structure your content. And then you use CSS and different properties to style that content on the page. Okay, so we've learned some great stuff, and that's really important. This is your toolbox right here. These are the things we use when we build web pages. In this section, just to do a little section review, we looked at all HTML tags and attributes and all CSS selectors and properties. So we saw resources where we could see all of the tags, all of the attributes, all of the selectors that are possible, all of the properties that we can choose. So that's a great resource to go call upon when you're just like, Friday night, watch a movie, or browse HTML tags and attributes and CSS selectors and properties. It's fun. And then we learned this different stuff here, all of which we just went over. These are different CSS properties. So we just reviewed all those, and we learned the box model and box sizing properties. So that was this section. Now for the high level overview, the entire course, right? Obviously all of these tags and all of these CSS properties. And for general knowledge, we've learned HTTP status codes. Whoa. That's cool. And we've learned how we could go into developer tools and look at the network tab. So here I'm showing developer tools. I know it's really small, but if you clicked on the network tab, heck, I'll just bring it up, Control-Shift-I, right? So here on the network tab, if I change something, it's saying status 200. How cool is that? We also learned this throttling. I could go to offline and I could see the dinosaur and have fun with that. So that's a network tab throttling. We learned to right click and we could choose inspect, though it's different here. But right click and I could choose inspect to also take me into developer tools, and then it'll show me the HTML and all of the CSS, including any rules that have been overridden. And also it'll show me this little box model thing for each element so I can inspect it. Totally cool. We've learned HTML terminology. So we've learned all of this HTML terminology. We've learned CSS terminology. We've learned all of this CSS terminology. And just for time's sake, I'm just highlighting it, but you should maybe pause the video and read it just to refresh it in your mind. We've learned about a separation of concerns. We've learned how to link CSS to HTML. We could have an external, an internal, or inline CSS. Not recommended. Recommended. Okay, just for like down and dirty, or, I just want to put a little bit of code. And there's a couple of performance arguments for doing this for the essential stuff. So that's good too. But this is the best, and this is also sometimes the best. This is never the best. We've learned about different integrated development environments. So you know the story on all these, and these are the two that are recommended. We've learned all about GitHub and version control software. Well, we learned what it is, and we've got a good introduction to it. We've learned what the master local Git repository is locally on your computer, and the origin master remote Git repository, right, which is over on GitHub. So that's the origin from which everybody draws. And we've learned how to use Git and GitHub, the basic Git commands. So git status, git add, --all, git commit -m, some message, and git push. Those are like the commands you use 90% of the time. We've learned how to delete a repo. We've learned file and folder naming conventions in HTML and also CSS. So I'm going to just put and CSS. And we've learned WebStorm shortcuts and how to use the key map reference. We've learned how to modify WebStorm formatting, how it formats the HTML. We learned about Emmet. We've learned tags and attributes, relative URLs versus absolute URLs, comments, how to do comments and why they're important, and we've learned about the box model. You are getting a great, very solid, awesome foundation in web programming. And so I just want to take a moment and review all that to, just refresh your mind, give you that big picture, the high-level overview, so you can see where we're going and what we're doing, and remind yourself how much you've already learned and how important it is. And hopefully you're starting to see like, whoa, here's how it's all connected, right? But all these different little pieces are coming together. And stripping out all of the extraneous bullcrap, right? Like not teaching you Bootstrap and jQuery and all these other things, which are just crutches, but focusing on the fundamentals. So you'll be strong. You'll know exactly what's happening no matter what you end up working with. HTML, CSS, That's the foundation. Those are the essentials. So you're learning some great stuff, and I hope this high-level overview has helped you. And you should really take a moment just to appreciate yourself, because you've made incredible headway. You're getting a great skill set. You have a really strong foundation already, and we're just going to continue to build on that. And I'm going to give you even more skills to start creating awesome web pages. So I'm excited, and let's move on to the next section, or the challenges. The challenges are next. We'll do the challenges to reinforce what you're learning, and I'll show you the solutions, and then we'll just keep going, and pretty soon you're going to be building great websites.